Alright, so I've just started recording the session again. We are going to pick it up from where we left off in the last session. Again, I'll just go ahead and click on add a filter. Of course, I'll select hotels data over here because that's exactly what our question is in this illustration. And of course, in the last session, there are four different factors based on which you can create filter using predefined filters. These are ISP domain, IP address, subdirectories, and hostname. So there are only two of them that I will cover in this session because again, it will go ahead and give you a taste of what filters are and how are they really working. And the first one of which that we covered was traffic from IP addresses. And again, just to refresh your memory a little bit, what we did was something like this, where I punched in IP address over here, and the way this filter really worked was that we would see, like, I as a business owner, if I go ahead and create this kind of a filter for my Google Analytics, what I'm really saying to Google Analytics is that, hey, exclude the data from for all the users who are connected to my website through this IP address. So again, I want to see every customer's data except for the ones who are connected using this IP address. So the reason why this might be relevant, and again, it is relevant for some companies because again, uh, they try to exclude their own internal employees from polluting their customers' data. So if you have a very large business, you may want to go ahead and put an IP address of your business, a static IP address of your business over here so that anyone who's connected to your website through your own internal IPs, well, that traffic can be excluded very, very easily. So again, that is something that we covered in the last session. However, in this section, we are going to go ahead and build one more important knowledge on top of this framework that we have been talking about. And again, we are going to use subdirectories in this one, in this example. Why are we doing that? Because subdirectories is in fact the most useful and most used kind of a filter as well. And now I'll go ahead and first explain it to you that what is a subdirectory in the first place, and then you will quickly realize that how this is going to be very, very useful for us. So I'm pretty sure again IP address part was absolutely clear to you guys. Again, if there's any difficulty, please do let me know because again, we've already covered that in the last session. So I'll just go ahead and assume at this moment in time that everybody is clear. Now we'll go ahead and see exactly what is subdirectories and how are they used in filters. So subdirectory uh, is a fantastic kind of a feature or a fantastic kind of a filter. Well, first we need to understand what is a subdirectory in the first place. What is a subdirectory? Well, subdirectory is a part of a URL, right? So let me go ahead and write a URL, something like this. Just give me 1 second. Uh, and yeah, all right. So this is what a structure of a URL looks like. And I'm sure that most of you guys have already seen something like this, where this part of the URL is your domain name. And by the way, this part of the URL is called hostname in Google Analytics filters. So this fourth kind of a filter that you have, traffic to hostname, well, this is based on your domain name, which is the selected part over here. And I'll give you a quick example of this at a later point in time. But again, firstly, let's go ahead and cover the subdirectory. So again, this is your domain name in your URLs. And generally what happens is that after the domain name, there are a few forward slashes and so on and so forth. And ultimately it leads you to a page. So what happens is that even though this particular thing that I'm going to tell you is not very much valid anymore, but this is how the web really started. This is how everything kicked off basically. This URL was supposed to mean something early on. Of course, I'll go ahead and tell you how the things have changed now. But again, early on, when the web was new, when internet was new, what used to happen was that every website was created using HTML language. And what happened was that these HTML files were then uploaded through an FTP on your hosting network. In fact, you could do the same thing even today. Every time you sign up for a hosting account, and generally when you get a confirmation, you are given an FTP address as well, just so that if you want to go ahead and upload your website through the legacy method, that option is still available. I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen that, but if you browse through your in email, the first email that you get from your hosting service provider, it will always contain that FTP address where you can upload the website. So how it used to work was that when you upload the website, again, this kind of a URL was supposed to mean something, and that meaning was to find, to get the address of your page. And that is the reason why this part of uh, of of the browser, where my text thing is blinking, basically that is called address bar, because this is where I would write the address of the page, and the browser would go to that particular page on that location and get me that information, that relevant information. And how browser would read this entire URL is that, hey, this particular domain is where I need to go first, and then on this domain there is a folder called folder 1, and then within that folder 1 there is a folder 2, and then within that folder 2 there is a page called page a.html, and that is the page that the user wants to see at this moment in time. That is how browser used to understand this information. That is what the meaning of this URL used to be at a very early stage of the internet. So what happens is that, of course, things have now changed, because even though, as I was mentioning it to you earlier, that how we used to create these HTML pages, and then we used to upload these particular HTML pages in these folders, so that we are able to manage our website more easily. However, of course, now that the real explosion of internet has happened, more and more websites are coming every single day, and on top of that, more and more websites are becoming more and more voluminous in nature. So basically they are getting a wide array of content on these websites, and it is getting harder and harder, it has been getting harder and harder to go ahead and manage these voluminous websites. And one way to tackle them that has come in the recent past is are things like content management systems. And of course, WordPress is one such example. It is a content management system through which we don't have to really think about creating HTMLs of our website. We don't have to really get into the nitty gritty of technology. Rather, we can focus in on our business, and we can just go ahead and type away, and after a short while we can go ahead and click on a button called publish, and that blog post or that particular page can get live instantaneously, again without our own indulgence there. Moreover, what has happened is that even though earlier, as I was saying, these URLs were created based on the location of that page, based on the folder structure that you have created on your website, much like how you would see your normal website or your normal uh, uh, computer's tree structure looks like. It used to be exactly like your normal computer's tree structure. So if I go into my own file, you can see it says C users, and that's my initials there, and then of course desktop, and then barcode. So again, this is just telling the tree structure, and that's exactly what this URL was. But now, if anyone has created a website in a recent past, you would know that in fact in WordPress now we can create our own URLs. we can create our own URLs. We can type our URL, the URL that we want that blog post to have. So again, we have really moved away from that folder structure to a very flexible kind of a method that we have today. Now, having that said, of course, the terminology firstly is exactly the same still. So we call these folders subdirectories still, because again, these used to be subdirectories only. These folders used to be subdirectories, but again, the name has still not been lost. The more important thing is to understand why do we need this part of the URL. So again, when I mean that we are going to be creating filters based on subdirectories, what I mean is that we will be creating the filters based on this part of the URL. We are going to take a look at this part of the URL, which is highlighted right in front of you, and we are going to be creating filters based on that. Now again, the more important thing is to understand why is this even important. Now, one really cool aspect, of course, you will read this in its own module. So SEO will have its own module, but anyone who has gone through SEO, you would be able to, of course, I mean, give your validation as well on this thought. But what has happened is that now Google goes ahead and gives brownie points, or I should say gives bonus points to those websites which have keywords embedded within the URL. So that is what has happened, and that is the main reason why people go ahead and edit their URLs within these content management systems like WordPress. Why else would I want to play around with my URL if I did not have any benefit coming out of it? It of course increases my work. So people only do things which gives them benefit, and that is what it has come down to, that in last 10 years Google has started rewarding those websites which are giving them the keywords within the URL. And what has happened is that people have started using this URL as a way to explain Google that what is the structure of this particular page. And I'll go ahead and show you examples of this as well, just so that we are all on the same page. But just to give you a little just to give you a little understanding before we jump into that example, just before that visual I'm going to show you, just remember that again, what has happened is that again, SEO rewards for having keywords in the URL. So what happens is that people have started putting these keywords there, people have started putting these meaningful categories there, and that is one way we can group bunch of our content together using filters. And again, as I promised to you, I'll go ahead and show you a couple of examples for this, just to show you that again, there are many big websites, known websites doing the same thing. And of course, the first example that I'm going to show to you is of course Jabong. And that's because one of the first problems that I solved for them when I went in was that initially they of course have two different verticals. One handles women's fashion and another handles men's fashion. Of course, both of these require a completely different skill set, so they have two different teams for it. So women's team wanted to look at their data only, while men's team wanted to take a look at their data only. So it was a very important aspect that we try to solve using Google Analytics. And of course, I'll show you how easy that was, but that was something that was absolutely needed, because they wanted to take a look at the things that they were responsible for without any indulgence of a third party category, or a category I should say that belongs to somebody completely different, right? So everybody wants to focus in on what their job is all about. And I'll go ahead and show you very easily that how we did that. Again, under women's category, and if I go under any subcategory like kurta and kurtis, what you will find is, of course, I have a lot of different products which are being shown over here. But one really interesting thing that you will see over here in the URL is that slash women slash is going to be a part of this URL. And in fact, this slash women slash is going to be a part of every single subcategory which is going to lie within women's category. Of course, I'm going to show you that as well. But the part that I was mentioning it to you regarding having keywords and categorization within the URL, you can see this absolutely crystal clearly over here. Again, it says slash women, and then it says slash clothing, and then it says slash kurtas and kurtis, kurtas suit sets, and again kurtas kurtis. So basically, again, it is telling exactly what is the categorization to Google, of course, using these particular keywords within the URL. Absolutely. So that says it helps Google bots and crawlers. Yes, absolutely. And that's the reason why Google gives us brownie points. It is not really running a charity. Again, for all of you guys who have not gone through the SEO modules, you will learn this at a much greater depth. But just to give you a little insight about this, well, again, Google's job is very difficult to actually crawl every single page on the web and try to understand what kind of a content there is. So Google gives brownie points or these bonus points to the websites which make it easier for Google to understand what kind of a content do they have on that particular page. So basically, that's what this particular URL has. It says that it is about women, it is about women clothing, it has something to do with kurta sets, it has something to do with kurtas and kurtis. So as you can see, there are quite a lot of keywords stuffed within the URL, which Google can assimilate and can say, okay, you know what, it must be something about kurtas and kurtis and women. Again, it helps Google understand exactly what the content is all about. So good point, Siddharth, that you brought it up. And again, that is exactly the reason why Google gives bonus points for that. So again, let's go to a different category and see if that this kind of a structure really persists. So let's go ahead and go to saris and dress materials under women section itself. And again, as you probably see now, the layout has definitely changed. I can see different products, and if you take a look at the left hand side, filters as well, even they have changed. But as you can see, the structure of the URL has remained largely the same. It still contains slash women slash, and then of course slash clothing slash. But of course, after that, the things have changed. From kurtas and kurtis, we are in saris and dress materials, and you can see all of that is stuffed within the URL itself. Again, I can go ahead and go to any such category. I could just keep on going to more and more categories, but you will see exactly the same thing going on. Of course, this is women's dresses and jumpsuits. As you can see, slash women, slash clothing, slash dresses, jumpsuits, all are here. However, if I was to jump over to a men's category, you will see that slash women slash will be completely gone. In fact, this will be replaced by slash men slash. So again, the only thing that I did when I was in Jabong, just to be able to differentiate between women's category and men's category, all I have to do is just put in over here something like this, that hey, include only the traffic to subdirectories that contain slash women slash. So what I'm saying to Google is that hey, you might be collecting all sorts of data in the backend, I don't care, but I want to see, when I look at this particular view, when I'm entering through this particular doorway, I only want to see the data which is regarding my women section and nothing else, absolutely nothing else. Mayurakshi, Prateek, Siddharth, Simon, is this clear? Susoban, is this clear? Bhavna, Aniket, Adnan, what is subdirectory? What it used to mean? What it means now? How people are really stuffing their keywords within the URL, and how easy it is to go ahead and use it like this this particular traffic to subdirectory. All these points should be clear now. Excuse me. All right. So now coming back to uh, the illustration that we were going to keep in mind, and of course we were going to talk about restriction of access for MMT for the example of hotels, which is being managed by Krina and her team. So let's go ahead and see another website which is along the same lines of MMT, and of course in this one I'm going to go to GoIBibo. And GoIBibo is also a website which has exactly the same kind of a format. Again, they try to put all their keywords within the URL. So currently I'm on the home page and it has taken me directly to the flight section. But one really cool thing you'll see is that if I go into hotel section, you'll find that slash hotel slash will be a part of the URL. And now this will be a part of the URL for all the pages that are regarding hotels. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press cancel over here, but I'm going to then search for, let's say, Delhi, and then I'll go ahead and select any check-in date, check-out date, and I'll say get set go. And of course this is going to be a listing page for me. Earlier we were looking at the search page. This is listing page. You can see all the listings of different hotels over here. But one thing again you'll find very much common over here is that it has slash hotels slash in them. And of course, even if I wanted to go ahead and really look at one hotel in particular, as you can see, I'm in one hotel's description, and of course I can take a look at a lot of different things. I can interact with that page. There are a lot of different variety of things that I can go ahead and click on. But again, what you'll find is that over here as well, the home page or the page URL contains slash hotel slash. So in this example that we are trying to combine all the data from hotels part of the business. If I wanted to go ahead and do that, well, it is going to be just as easy of a task as it was in Jabong. The only thing that I really need to do is that instead of slash women slash, I will just go ahead and write slash hotels slash. As soon as I do that, then any page that belongs to that category, since it is going to have that part in the URL anyways, well, I'm going to go ahead and make that a part of this filter. And again, if this kind of a string is found within the URL, well, it's going to be very easy for Google to go ahead and say that, hey, you know what, this part of the website or this part of the data belongs to hotels. So again, that is how we are demarcating the data. We are being able to communicate to Google Analytics that, hey, it is this part of the data that we want to give the access to. So this is the part of data which is hotels data. Again, that is one of the things that we were trying to solve using filters. And again, this is how you solve it. Again, you have a few different filters, different kinds of filters. And again, we have already covered IP address and subdirectories. Again, if there is any difficulties, please do let me know, and I'll go ahead and repeat that. But again, it is just as simple as it seems to you on your screen. Again, it's a very simple rule setting kind of a format, and through which we are communicating Google that, you know, this is the data that we are talking about. Again, we can go ahead and mark this as done as well, because as soon as I go ahead and save this kind of a filter, it will come into effect from that point onwards. So again, I've filled in on this information. I'll go ahead and hit save, and it will come into effect from that point onwards, right? And again, they are going to be kind of permanent in nature, so you need to make sure that you are selecting, you're doing the right thing, you are double checking your filters, because again, as I told you earlier in the last session, that once the changes start happening, let's say if I realize that I made mistake after 2 days, then the data for 2 days where my filter was incorrect, that data will never come back to me. That data will always be polluted. So always make sure that before saving your filter, you are doing the double check. Now, once we are done with these two steps, once we have created a new view and we have also created successfully a filter that does our job for us, well, the last part that is left for us to do, and the only part that is left for us to do, is access management. And that is again as easy as it can be. The only thing that we really need to do is again go back to my admin section. This is how everything looks like at this part of this particular page. And of course everything is bifurcated into account, property and view. Now an important thing to note, and of course we are going to use user management for this access management that I was telling you, because now we have to, now Google knows what hotels data is. Now the only thing that is left for me to do is to give this access to Krina and her team. That's it. That's all I have to do. So what happens is that we are definitely going to use user management over here, but which user management should be used? And that is something that we need to understand first. So there is user management under account, there is user management under property, and then one under view. Some of you guys might have already figured it out, but basically what it means is that if I use the user management under the view, what it will what it will do is it will only give me the access of that view and nothing else. However, if I am using the user management under property, basically it will go ahead and grant the access to the entire property. That means that every single view under that particular property will be accessible by that person. And lastly, the highest level of access is of course account, because that is again that appears to be the number one or the on the top in the hierarchy. What it means is that if I give the access to somebody through an account part of the admin panel, it will give the access to the entire account. That means all the properties under it and all the views under each of these properties. So again, needless to say, it is very important to make sure that we are using the user management under the view most of the times. 99% of the times you will be using this user management under this view, because we only want to go ahead and give one or two different accesses to one or two different views, nothing more than that. Properties of course are a little bit higher kind of a role. So again, just make sure that you are paying attention to who you are giving access to from the property level or the account level. Having that said, let's go ahead and see how the user management really looks and how would you give this access to Krina. Well, there is a user management listed over here under view, and that's what we are going to use. So here I am. I've clicked on the user management under view, and over here as you can see there is only one person who has an access of this view at this moment in time. So what I need to do is I need to go ahead and add in a few more people, and of course I'm going to do that by clicking on big bright blue button on the top right corner. And of course as soon as I do that, it is going to give me two options. Of course I'm going to add a few users. So again, I'll go ahead and over here write a an email address over here. As you can see, krina@gmail.com does not exist at this moment in time. Again, Krina, if you're here, you can go ahead and see if you can find that particular Gmail account. It's pretty neat. It's good to find such email addresses on Gmail. It's hard to find them too. But again, if Krina had this, of course I need to enter the correct one. I don't have Krina's Gmail address, but I can put anyone's Gmail address over here. As you can see, I can add even more than one. I can say that hey, I want to give this to Simon at gmail.com as well. So I can do that as well. So now what happens is, I'm sure there is something wrong. Uh, Simon at gmail.com, I bet must be taken. So, but again, as you can see, I can add more than one accounts over here, Gmail accounts, but that is a must. You need to have a Gmail account to be able to use Google Analytics. That is one aspect that has to happen. So you must be signed up with Gmail or YouTube or any Google account, but you must have a Google account to go to be able to use Google Analytics. Again, however, once I have made sure that I've entered the right email addresses, the next part of user management is the level of access that I want to give to Simon and Krina. So someone is asking, can we give corporate email ID or only Google ID will work? Well, Google ID, only Google IDs work. Of course, Google also has their own Gmail for work. So in fact, Google does have, I mean, it does support, let's say, your own host name as well as the domain name over here. So basically, let's say if I own Prateek.com, then of course I could have somebody called Anuj who would be working for me, but his email address would be anuj at prateek.com, right? So that's how generally it happens. If Google is really managing my work email as well, of course you can use your corporate email ID over here as well. But if it is not hosted by Google, if it is not really being managed by Google, then you cannot use your corporate email ID. It has to be Google ID only, something that is managed by Google. So once this is done, once you have again entered the correct URLs, the next part that we need to work on is the level of access that you want to give to Krina and Simon. There are four levels of access. As you can see on the right hand side, there are four checkboxes. The read and analyze is the lowest level access, in which the person can only look at the reports. It's a view only access. It might be interesting, it might be good for some people, but if you want anyone to really work on your data, well, read and analyze is not enough. You need to give that person at least collaborate access. Again, for people who are going to run some analytics on your business, if somebody wants to only check a look, keep an eye on your data just to make sure everything is running fine, of course read and analyze might be able to suffice in that case. Lastly, we have a level of access called edit. Basically what happens is that collaborate is an access in which you can create segments and 50 different things. Apart from that, however, in edit you can not only create things for yourself, but you can also delete things for other people, and that is a bit of a trust factor. Again, you need to have that kind of a trust level with the person who you are providing this kind of a level of access. And of course, lastly, we have manage users. Over here there is only one thing that I'm going to tell you, and that is that of course manage users is of course a person who can let in people or let out people out of that particular project. So essentially you can add somebody uh, as somebody who wants to take a look at your data, and if you are wrong about your calculation, that person can essentially kick you out as well. So make sure that you are not giving manage user access to anyone, right? So that has just been my thing. But again, of course, you guys can of course take a learning from what happens around you guys about your depending on your culture, depending on your business and all of those things. But again, manage users is something really really tricky. That person can essentially kick you out, so that is really really important. All right, so these are four levels of access. Again, I can go ahead and select the ones which are absolutely necessary. So let's say I want to go ahead and give access to only Simon and Krina, and only the read and analyze access. Once I'm done, I need to click on add on the top right corner, and of course, once this happens, it is going to send emails to both Krina and Simon, where they will be notified that yes, I have actually given them access. So again, very very useful kind of a feature, and as you can see, a very easy to use feature as well. This user management. Apart from that, we did cover the subdirectories part and the creation of new view part. So guys, can I get a few yeses just to let me know that everything that we have talked about views has absolutely made sense to all of you guys. Everything is clear. Is that safe to assume? Thank you very much, Kuldeep. Thank you, Mayurakshi, Aniket, Bhavna, and Prateek. Just give me 1 second. I'll just take a couple of sip of waters. Just give me 1 second. Perfect. Thank you, Prateek, Susoban, Siddharth, Simon, and all of you guys. So again, these are few steps that you need to take to be able to restrict access using views. In this case, we use filters as well, which is again a part of the entire scheme of things. So you can see just by looking at these three steps that filters and views are hand in hand. They are partner in crime, they are partners in crime. So you will find them being used extensively with each other. In fact, apart from the all website data, you will never be needing a new view until you wanted to apply some kind of a filter to attain some kind of a business case. Of course, in this case, we were talking about a restriction of access. So that is why you will have, I mean, if you want to really master these this particular Google Analytics, and of course, if you really want to get deep dive into Google Analytics, this is going to be a very important part for you to learn more about filters. There is definitely a little bit more information that you can have through external resources regarding filters, because again, it's such a critical part of everything that we do. Filters are a very important part of data collection. Again, it is important. But again, we are going to move a step forward, because again, as a digital marketer, you might not be spending a lot of time in integrating, doing the implementation and all of those things, but you would be spending a lot of time in analyzing numbers with respect to some major events like conversions, like signups, like video plays, audio plays, and so on and so forth. Because generally, what happens is that a digital marketer is generally given a budget of, let's say, 15 lakhs, and then for these with these 15 lakhs you are supposed to accomplish something. Maybe your CEO or your CMO might reach out to you and say that, hey, you know what, I'm going to give you 15 lakh rupees, but in return you need to promise me that you will bring me two times the number of sessions. So basically, I want to do this for acquisitions in this case. However, on in another scenario, that same person might say that, hey, give me three times the revenue or three times the number of transactions, again, and everything in between. So again, that budget might have a target which could be varying from user acquisition to conversion and everything in between. So it is very important, before we plunge into the reporting, to understand how are these milestones captured, these important milestones, these important goals. So we will cover that first. Of course, we are going to be spending a little bit, or only half an hour on it, or maybe 15-20 minutes on it, depending on how quickly we can cover them. But then we are going to move into a reporting aspect of everything. So let's see exactly what are these goals and how do we track them in Google Analytics. All right. So setting up goals. All right. So over here, this is the slide that I want to show you very quickly. So what happens is, first of all, there are four types of goals that Google Analytics provides us. Basically, there are four ways we can configure goals in Google Analytics. But what are these goals in the first place? Now, some of these things might sound like goals to you as is, like revenue, transactions. For Ghana.com, the goal might be to have people play more and more songs on their website. For YouTube, maybe the central goal for them would be to make people view more videos. So it is very easy and intuitive for us to understand these types of goals. These types of goals in the language of Google Analytics are called macro conversions. These macro conversions are nothing but central conversions for these businesses. Every business is there for a reason. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So every business is out there for a reason. Whatever that reason is, when that happens, that is macro conversions. It is very easy for us to spot that. For example, for FedEx, it might be a person booking a shipment. I want to send something as a courier. That would be a conversion. That would be a macro conversion. For an NGO, for a non-profit organization, getting a volunteer to sign up could be a central goal. Now, depending on business, of course, there would be many different permutations and combinations of these macro conversions. But more importantly, what Google recommends, and of course, many other analytics frameworks as well as business managers recommends us to have something called micro conversions as well. Now, what is this micro conversions? Well, micro conversions are of course something which is of great value, but they are not really the central goals. These are milestones too. These are some important aspects of our business, but they are not really the central goals. But there is something really unique about these milestones, these micro conversions, and that is that if you have these micro conversions, if people go through these milestones on your website, what happens is that they are actually more likely to convert into your macro conversions. They are pushed towards a little bit further towards your macro conversion. And I'll give you an example of that. Well, of course, we want to have more and more people transact on our website if our website is jabong.com, right? For jabong.com, the macro conversion would be how many times people have bought something from jabong.com. Now, a micro conversion, a good micro conversion for them is also subscription of newsletters. Now, if you scroll down enough on this particular website called jabong.com, you'll find that in fact you will have a place where you can enter their subscription to newsletter. So let me just go ahead and take you here. So as you can see on my screen probably that there is an option of subscribing to newsletter. Now, this is not the central goal of this particular business. This is not the reason why Jabong was created, but every single time somebody subscribes to a newsletter by Jabong, what that person is saying is that, hey, reach out to me via email marketing as well. I want to hear more about you. I want to hear about more offers from you. And ultimately, what you'll find is that, of course, as soon as you open that line of marketing as well, that person will become more likely to make a purchase. Now, to some of you, this might be very intuitive. Of course, when people subscribe to newsletters, I can bombard them with emails, and of course, that person will buy from me sooner or later. Now, let me go ahead and give you an example of a micro conversion which is not very intuitive. So you have, or in fact, when we were analyzing the numbers of Jabong.com some time back, we found out that when people view more than three images of one particular product on that particular page, on the same page, then what happens is that these people are more likely to make a purchase on your website. Well, what happens is that our hypothesis was that when somebody comes on your particular website, and what happens is that if they are viewing more images, once they are done with it, they have much more information about that product. They know more about that product now, and that leads them to make a purchase. Because what happens is that if you make somebody understand your product, what happens is sooner or later you'll find that, hey, you know what, that person will buy your product. Of course, that person should have the need for it too, and but that is already catered to, because of course the person is on jabong.com because he needs, or he or she needs some clothing material. The need is there, but again, when that person views more images of the same product, again, that person has more information about the page, or the product to play around with, and that person can make an informed decision on the website. Because one little fun fact for you guys, most of the people don't buy things from internet because they feel that there is insufficient information about those products. Like when you walk into a mall, what happens is that you can take a look at the product, you can pick up that clothing material, you can feel that in your hands, and you feel like, you know what, yes, I have the entire look and feel right in front of me. I know so much about that product, and of course in that moment in time you're making an informed decision. However, at home, when you are looking at that product and on your screen, you're wondering at that moment in time that, hey, is this product really going to look like this? Is this product really going to feel like this? I wonder what this product is going to be like. Is this going to fit me? And 10 different other limiting um mindsets or limiting thoughts that would be coming to you. So again, we saw that when people had more viewed more images, they were more likely to buy. Now, what did we do with that particular aspect? Of course, we started tracking that as a goal, because we knew that when somebody is going to go ahead and view more than three images, that person is going to be more likely to make a purchase. So we wanted to track that in a special way so that we can manage it at a later point in time. There is a very powerful quote by Peter Drucker. Some of you guys may have heard about him, some of you guys may not have, but he's a great marketing legend. And one of the great things he said was that what gets measured, it gets managed. And that is the reason why we want to go ahead and track goals and these conversions in a special manner. Because each time we measure them, we get a great unique prospect to manage these as well. Of course, like I said, one of the things that we did after that analysis was to start tracking them as goals. The next thing that we did was to increase that image size, made sure that it had got a really large real estate on our website. And as you can see, now a person is more likely to go ahead and view this image, because again, it holds such a large part of the website. Again, that's what we basically tested. And when we basically launched this particular new design, of course, we saw a huge increase, a huge jump in number of conversions as well. Because again, people viewed more images, they had more insights about the product, and of course, they ultimately bought that product. But again, the main important part again with this exercise is to be able to track these simple things as well, using Google Analytics, these micro conversions as well. You don't want to be that particular business who only focuses on that end goal. In fact, what you will find is that if you go ahead and find these levers which are really pulling your numbers up, if you just tweak those things, these micro conversions which are pushing people towards that sale, what you will find is that you will be able to leverage that at a much greater capacity. You will be able to make a much larger impact, because again, if the user experience is not good, the person might not buy, no matter how great your price is, no matter how much marketing you are doing. However, if you are doing a, a great job on user experience, again you'll find that people would just smoothly uh, get to that macro conversion. Of course, you might want to do a lot of marketing as well, but again, it just makes a smoother transition for your customers. And again, that is exactly what we want to do. So what we have is a concept of micro conversions as well. Again, we want to be able to track them, and we have four ways to go ahead and track them in Google Analytics. There are four ways. One is by creating a destination type of a goal, or an event type of a goal, or pages per visit, or duration per session. So this is duration per session. So let me go ahead and do that. And what I'll do is I'll try to save it as well. All right, I think. Alright, so I'll just say continue. Okay, I think it's saved now. Alright, so these are four different types of goals. So now let's go ahead and go to Google Analytics and see what these four different types of goals are in a bit more detail. And let's go ahead and go through them one by one and see what these are and how do we set them up as well. So for that, let me go to this part right over here. Of course, I'm going to press cancel as of right now to all of those pop-ups to get me in the admin panel once again. And what you'll find is, of course, over here I am in the admin panel, and of course the goals are the third option from the top under the views, which is on the far right corner. There is a goal section. I'll go ahead and click on that, and of course over here there is an option to create a new goal. There are no goals at this moment in time, and in a view I can absolutely have about 20 goals, no more than that. I can have at max 20 goals, and that's it. So that is what is written over here as well. And of course you can see I can go ahead and create a new goal by clicking on this red button. So I'll just go there. Now, one really cool thing to note over here is that there are only three steps that we need to follow to be able to create a goal. The first step is to understand which type of a goal that you, if you wanted to go ahead and create a goal from a template or a custom goal, I'm going to go ahead and click on custom, because again, custom gives us the highest level of basically flexibility. So I'll just go ahead and select custom, and I'll go ahead and click on continue. And with that, my second step starts. Over here I'm going to put in a name, let's say generic goal. Let's say I'm doing this, and of course then there is goal slot ID as well. I'll just go ahead and keep it as is, because this is auto incremented. Basically it is automatically taken care of by Google. You don't have to worry about this goal slot ID anymore. It used to be something that used to hold some value, but now not so much. Now after that, we also have that goal type. As I was telling you, there are four types of goals. Again, these are the four types of goals which are written over here. I'll go ahead and start with something really simple, to understand, and that is going to be duration per session. Of course, I'll just go ahead and select that and click continue, and it is going to take me to the last and final step where I have to configure the goal. Now I've already selected which type of a goal that I have. Now I have to configure the goal. Now you already know what a session is. We've already also discussed a session duration. So session duration is basically the amount of time somebody is spending in each of their session of your website. Now if people are spending a lot of time on your website in one session, what that means is that people are engaged on your website. They are engaged so much so that they are okay spending a lot of time on your website, which is a great thing. So what happens is that for especially websites like blogs, which are engagement driven, what you'll find is that this is also an engagement driven goal. So this is a very, very good goal type to be created for such websites. Again, very, very good goal type for these engagement driven websites. How it works is that we are going to enter some value over here, like 1 2 3 over here. And what this would do is that, of course, I've entered 1 hour 2 minutes and 3 seconds. That would make sure that if any user has been on my website for more than 1 hour 2 minutes and 3 seconds, it will say that, hey, something really amazing has happened, and it will make sure that it marks that as a milestone. Again, this is not a macro conversion, this is a micro conversion. But as you can see, this is absolute, this kind of a terminology is being used nowhere. You will not find micro conversion and macro conversions anywhere in the goal setup. It is only there as a philosophy, which is there. But as you can see, I've entered 1 hour 2 minutes and 3 seconds over here, and very quickly you can realize if anyone spends more time than this time that I've punched in over here, it would be considered as a goal. First of all, is this part clear to everyone? Adnan, Aniket, Bhavna, Krina, Lakshmi, Mayurakshi, Prateek, Siddharth, Simon, Zobin. Again, is the goal, the theory about goal clear? That what is a micro conversion? What is a macro conversion? What is the importance of micro conversion? Of course, you guys know already what macro conversion is and how amazing it is. But again, you should also know that micro conversions are also useful. On top of that, we have covered the first type of a goal, which is duration per session, and how do we set that up. Perfect. Thank you, Siddharth, Mayurakshi, Simon, Prateek, and everyone. Do let me know if there is any hiccups otherwise. Well, all right. Then another thing about the same type of goal, as you can see already that how this is configured. But now you might be wondering, or at least some of you might be wondering that, hey, Prateek, you have entered 1 hour 2 minutes and 3 seconds over here, but what is the right time for my website? How much time should I be keeping over here? Now what happens is it completely depends on where your website stands currently. Let me tell you. For that, what I'll go ahead and do is I'll go ahead and go to the audience overview section, because generally in audience overview you get to see exactly what kind of a data you already have in your system, what kind of a customer behavior is actually coming to your website. So again, I will have to go to a different profile really quick. Okay, awesome, so I got it. So I'll just go ahead and take you through to my website. So as you can see, this is the kind of a data that I'm getting over here. So over here, what happens is that my average session duration is currently sitting at 1 minute and 9 seconds, which is a very, very poor average session duration. We are going to talk about how much is good, what kind of a bounce rate is bad, all of those benchmarks we are going to cover a little bit later. But at this moment in time, let me go ahead and give you a brief overview about what we are going to cover. Again, just to give you just to give you a little taste of what this average session duration should be. Uh, Again, we are going to take a look at it at a much greater depth a later point in time. But as a critical number, as the least number, you should aim for at least 3 minutes as your average session duration, somewhere around 2 to 3 minutes. You can say 2 minutes and 30 seconds, something like that. So you should aim for 2.5 minutes. Let's just say that you should at least have that 2 minutes and 30 seconds. If people are not spending 2 minutes and 30 seconds on your website, well, your website is in deep trouble. It is in deep trouble. So since my website is 1 minute and 9 seconds, what I might want to do is I might want to go ahead and put that number over here. I might want to go ahead and have 0 hours, but over here I might want to have 2 minutes and 30 seconds, because that in itself is not happening for me. As you can see, it is my average session duration is about 1 minute. So again, 2 minutes and 30 seconds is definitely not happening for me, and I want to critically reach that number. So it would be of a great value for me to be able to track when and if somebody goes beyond that limit. Since I'm much below 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So again, if you are below the critical mass level, you need to have that level set up. However, if your website is already giving you 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and again, you would be getting to more than 2 minutes and 30 seconds if you have been paying attention to your blog. I don't pay much attention to my blog, but if you have been keeping up with it, of course your blog would be doing much more than 2 minutes or 30 seconds, because again, that is a critical mass level. Now, when your website is doing much better than that, let's say 3 minutes, then you need to go ahead and have, there are two separate ranges. One is that 40 to 50% up. If you want to go ahead and get a riskier target, a target which will make you work hard for it, then 40 to 50% more than your average session duration would be an optimum target. Basically, if you have 3 minutes over here, then of course 50% would be 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So that should be your average, your target average session duration. That should be what you should be setting up over here, right over here. However, if you want to take a mediocre level target, 25 to 30% is what you should be opting for. However, uh, of course, as a general rule of thumb, if your numbers are low, if you are getting low numbers, of course there is a much higher chances for you to be able to progress, proceed. You can actually go ahead and expect exponential growth, and in those times you should be aiming for 40 to 50% higher. Of course, as the number keeps on getting steeper, let's say that you are at 9 minutes of an average session duration, you will not be able to achieve that 50% at any point in time. You will not be able to do that, and in those circumstances you would have to opt for a more humble target, like 25 to 30%, or maybe even 15%, because having a 9 minutes of an average session duration is already very good in the industry. Now, can I get a few yeses if you were able to understand that? Again, a higher risk goal is 40 to 50%, a low moderate goal is 25 to 30%. But if you are below that critical mass, like my website is, well, that critical mass must be your target goal. And in the meantime, I'll go ahead and answer Adnan really quick. And again, if there is any difficulty for anyone, please do make sure that you make me repeat it. Now, Adnan is saying, but wouldn't the goal of for average session duration depend on the type of the website and the web page? For instance, if the point of the website is to provide just one sentence answer, then it wouldn't be possible to get an average session duration of 2.5 minutes. Okay. Now, this is a very common misconception here. I'll tell you one really good golden rule of thumb. Of course, Adnan, we can go ahead and create a lot of hypothetical exceptions in our minds, but I'll go ahead and give you one really good rule of thumb, uh, and that is, you need to think from your mind's eye about a website and ask yourself only one question: can I explore on that website or not? That is the only question that we need to ask ourselves. If the answer is yes, if the answer is yes, that I can explore, am I going to explore? Is it good enough for me to explore? Is not the question. Can I explore? If the answer is yes, well, absolutely, the average session duration should be high. It should be more than 2.5 minutes. Absolutely, 2.5 minutes is again the critical for you. But in case you are coming up with the answer of no, that no, I cannot explore that particular website, well, in that case, yes, those websites would be considered as an exception, which would have an optimum average session duration much lower in some circumstances than 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I'll give you an example with that. Well, one example could be Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia has entire subject matter all on one page. Now, you might think that I want to read more about India's 1857 independence struggle. So I'll have everything all on one page. So I might not want to explore more on the website. But on the contrary, in fact, the opposite is true. In fact, what happens is, and of course I have found that in myself, and I'll go ahead and do this as a poll in front of you guys as well. But what I've found is that when I'm most affected by an article, most I would say that when I read an article and I felt that it was the most engaging article in Wikipedia, when I was truly engaged. In fact, what I found was that I did something like this: that I went to 1857 initially, but then I was so moved by Rani Lakshmi Bai, and then I would want to say that, hey, you know what did she do? Who was she? What was she about? Then I would click on that link, go to Maharani Lakshmi Bai's page, and then go to somebody else's page, then go to Mahatma Gandhi's page, then soon I'm on 1947 struggle automatically. Without me really giving a conscious thought, what I'm doing is I'm wrapped around in that world and I'm just stumbling from one page to another. And soon enough, I've consumed 50 different pages and maybe I've spent 20, 25 minutes on that particular website. Has it ever happened to anyone else? Lakshmi, Mayurakshi, Prateek, Siddharth, Simon, right? So when you are really moved by something, when you are really engaged by something, that is what happens. And again, that is what true engagement is, right? However, on the other hand, let me also go ahead and give you an example of the websites in which you cannot explore. Now, what happens is that if you go ahead and take a look at Ola or Uber, right? If you think about those websites, you can immediately come to a conclusion that you cannot go there for exploration. You cannot really go to Ola for exploration. You cannot go to your net banking website. If you think about net banking only, you will never go to net banking to explore. Oh, I wonder what kind of things are available today on net banking. Nobody does that. And in those websites, yes, the average session duration happens to be low. But again, uh, what happens is that in websites like Wikipedia or any other Quora or any other website articles, you will always find that their average session duration tends to be a little bit more. Thank you very much, Siddharth. And Adnan, does that make sense? Does that make sense, Adnan? Perfect. Awesome. So having that said, this was my duration type of a goal. Now I'll just go ahead and cover the pages or screens per session goal as well, which is along the same lines only. So duration and pages or session screens per session, they are about the same thing only. So basically, the duration per session really means that how much time somebody is spending on your website in their one session. However, the pages per session is basically again an engagement metric which tells you that how many pages somebody views in one session. Now, duration and pages per session are interlinked, absolutely interlinked. They will always be hand in hand, because when in fact I would say that this is your primary metric, your pages per session is your primary metric, and duration per session is your resultant, by which I mean that if people are going to view more pages in your session, that would mean that they are engaged and they will on as a result they will have spent a lot of time on your website. So if you want to increase your duration per session, you will have to work on getting people to view more pages in each of their sessions. So that is what I meant by that. But again, it works exactly like the other metric that I was telling you about, the duration per session. Again, all I have to do is feed a number over here. of course the number has to be positive. So if I just go ahead and write 7 over here, what it means is that if anyone in one session views more than 7 pages, well, that would be considered as a goal, right? That would be considered as a goal. Now that is absolutely again very very simple to understand, exactly on the same lines of uh, duration per session. Now again, the bench basically what should be the pages or screens per session goal for your website? Well, that will also be absolutely the same way I told you earlier as well, regarding the duration per session. Well, a riskier goal will be your 40 to 50% gain. Your moderate goal will be 25 to 30% gain. Of course, you need to have at least 3 page views to survive as a business. So if you have anything lower than 3, then at least then 3 should be the optimum choice for you early on. But when you have, of course, your average pages per session more than 3, of course you can opt for that other thing that I was telling you about, that 40-50% or 25 to 30%. But again, very very similar to duration per session, because again it is exactly the same thing as well. Can I get a few yeses if this is clear? Lakshmi, Prateek, Adnan, Aniket, this is clear. Simon, Susoban, is this clear? Again, you will be able to see that pages per session is listed over here. In your audience overview, you can see your pages per session as well. So Susoban, again, 40 to 50% is that high risk goal. 25 to 30% is that moderate goal. Again, that's how you should choose how much do you want to increase your number. All right, so having that said, let's go to the another type of a goal, which is destination type of a goal. This is the last type of a goal that we will cover, half of which we will cover today. I'll go ahead and tell you what destination type of a goal is, how that is tracked, and a couple of cool things about it. But then there is something really exciting about destination type of a goal, and that is called funnels. We are going to talk about funnels in the next session because it is something that may take about 10 minutes to explain. So I will not go ahead and touch up on it today. But destination is going to be the last type of a goal. Event type of a goal we will not cover, because event based goal is hinged hinged upon a very important type of a tracking called event tracking. However, that absolutely requires a higher level of understanding of coding language, because it is completely tech in nature. However, if we have much time left at the end of our lectures, maybe in 7th or 8th session, we will go ahead and dedicate some time, about 15 minutes, to go ahead and talk about event tracking on a high level, and then we will talk about this event based goal. But at this moment in time, again, it requires a lot of custom JavaScript and custom coding knowledge, so we will not be covering event based goal. So let's jump into destination type of a goal, and let's see what this type of a goal is and how do we actually go ahead and track them. Well, just like the other two goals, this is going to be very very easy for you to understand. It is very very easy to configure as well. For this one, we will have to, however, take an example of websites like Amazon or Jabong in and really put our thoughts in that kind of a perspective. So I'm sure all of you guys have must have purchased something or the other from these e-commerce stores. But one thing you might have not noticed, or something you might have noticed already, is that no matter what we buy, right? I might buy a comb, you might buy a hair oil, somebody might buy a TV from Amazon. Doesn't matter what we buy and when we buy. I might buy at night, you might buy at in the afternoon. But what happens is that once the transaction is placed, once I have paid for my order, once you have paid for your order, we are all taken to one singular page by these websites. and these pages are called thank you pages or order confirm pages. Basically, it is a page dedicated to your order. It says that, hey Prateek, thank you very much for ordering. This is your order ID. These are all the items that you have bought. This is the shipment dates and all of those things. You know exactly how these pages look. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? That order confirm page. So Sobhan, right? Perfect. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, Adnan. Perfect. So now what happens is, since this is a unique kind of a page that is only shown to you when you have made a purchase, we can use it in a very, very simple goal tracking method, wherein we will say that, hey, this is the URL of a page on my website, which is actually a thank you page. And I'll go ahead and write that as an order confirm page over here. So I can go ahead and write this URL over here, and from that point onwards, Google will always be on the lookout. It will be on the lookout that when will this particular page be viewed by a visitor. And whenever that happens, whenever this visitor, any visitor that comes to your website happens to view this particular URL, well, Google is going to say that, hey, this particular URL can only be seen when a item is purchased. So that must mean that a goal has occurred and I need to be able to track that. Again, just on the flash of this particular page to any user. Because again, there is no other way for anyone to go ahead and land on this particular page. So if you have that kind of implementation on your website, well, you can leverage this type of a goal. And of course, this is not just relevant to only e-commerce websites which are selling stuff. It is also very relevant to lead generation websites. You might have seen that sometimes we fill in our lead, and once we submit our lead, we are taken to a page where it says that, thank you, Simon, thank you, Siddharth, for signing up. One of our sales agent will reach out to you shortly. So again, this kind of a setup is not at all just restricted to e-commerce industries. But again, if you have that kind of a setup in your organization where you have one page, one URL dedicated to a goal, to a micro or macro conversion, well, you can use this type of a goal where you just have to feed in that URL over here, and from that point onwards, Google will always be on the lookout, and whenever anyone views this particular page, it will be considered as a goal. Now, one little caveat over here. Of course, I have written my entire URL over here, but in Google Analytics, what happens is that Google Analytics does not require our host name over here. What it's saying is that, hey, I don't need your domain name, because one thing you might remember, might not remember, but I'll go ahead and jog your memory really quick, that when we were setting up our account, when we were setting up our property, we actually had to give our website URL over here. So we had to write, let's say www.jabong.com if we owned it. So we had to give our domain name over here. So we've already provided them our domain name. Google does not require our domain name again. And from that point onwards, we can just go ahead and remove this www.jabong.com part. I can just go ahead and completely remove this domain name, and whatever's left, whatever's the rest of the URL, that will stay as is. And again, whenever that URL is flashed in front of anyone, it will be considered as a goal. Is this part clear to everyone? Adnan, Aniket, Lakshmi, Prateek, Siddharth, Simon, Susoban, can I get a final yes over here? Thank you, Adnan. Thank you, Susoban. Thank you, Aniket, Simon, Siddharth, Adnan, Prateek. Thank you very much. Awesome. Perfect. So good. I think we have been able to cover quite a lot of things. We've covered one very important type of filter called subdirectories. Then we've also covered almost everything that we had to cover about goals. In the next session, I'll tell you something about funnels. Funnels are a very important aspect of our tracking. It is very intuitive, and it gives us quite a lot of insights about how customers use our website, especially the part where they are paying. So it's absolutely important. So we will go ahead and cover that as the final step of goals. Apart from that, the next thing, we will jump into the reporting part. So that's it for today, guys. Make sure that you go ahead and click on that link and enter, or please share your feedback. I'll also go ahead and look on my end if this link is working. Yes, it's working. So again, just make sure you go ahead and click on this link. But that's it from my side for today. I hope you guys got some meaningful insights from today's session. Again, thank you very much, Adnan, Aniket, Lakshmi, Prateek, Siddharth, Simon, Susobin. I will see you guys next time. Have a great night ahead of yourself. And again, I'll see you guys on Thursday. Make sure you go ahead and click on that link and share your feedback. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night ahead of yourself. I will see you guys on Thursday. Bye bye.